Welcome, everyone. It's another edition of KSR Zoom Action, basketball breakdown show. As always, Zach Gagan, joined by my co-host Brandon Ramsey over in the I don't know what side of you're on my left side, I should say. Brandon, let's go ahead and start. Just how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are the general vibes of your life in terms of Kentucky basketball right now? And don't be too honest. Like, you can sunshine pump a little bit if you please. But just how are you doing?
Life vibes are good. Everything's good here in Indiana. We got a beautiful sunny day. I'm looking forward to a fun weekend. I'm going to be at Churchill Downs this weekend.
Is that
So
right?
looking forward to that little opening weekend for Derby with a bunch of friends. So that'll be a good time. Kentucky vibes, not great. I wish we had more players that were good at basketball on the roster. And I wish that publicly we knew that we were actually even trying to get other good basketball players, because right now, at least to the public eye, I don't know if we're even I think we might be done recruiting, Zach. I'm not sure if we're good with the I know we have a couple guys on campus this week. Let's walk it back a little bit. But we are gonna get excited about Alex Wilkins throughout this show, and that is a real thing. So I'm not in love with how things are going right now, but I am really excited about this backcourt. We've already broken down Zoom Diallo. Go watch that show if you have not already. And then we're going to get really excited about Alex Wilkins today. We're going to, it's April 22nd. We got time to figure it out in theory. And I think that's where we are.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of doom and gloom vibes in the Big Blue Nation right now, but I think there is. I mean, I've said it once, I've said it twice, I'll say it six or seven more times, Brandon. Yeah, I'm just going to lean into the whole bit now, but Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo are going to be really good. They're going to be so much fun. Like, I think that a lot, like, I think we're kind of pushing that part of the roster aside a little bit because of how the whole Donnie Freeman thing went. But Wilkins and Zoom Diallo are going to be a lot of fun. We're about to break down the film on Wilkins. We got 5 total different clips that we're going to break down that Brandon and I have been able to comb through. But as you mentioned, Brandon, I don't think they're doing a source to say or anything like that today. So I'll kind of give just a little layout of what's going on. Gabe Dines, the 7'5" center from USC. He's a Northern Kentucky native. He's visiting starting today. Justin McBride, forward, 6'8" forward from James Madison. He was in Brandon Garrison's recruiting class with Oklahoma State in 2023, which is kind of funny to think of looking back now. He was a third team All Sun Belt. I think they're also are they Sun Belt or Horizon League? I kind of forget where James Madison
is in the Sun Belt, Zachary.
Sun Belt, yes. Gabe Dines was in the Horizon League. He was like all defense there a couple times. So those two kids are visiting campus today. And then you've got Jerome Morton from Washington State transfer, who is from Winchester, Kentucky, not too far from Lexington. He's going to be visiting as well. I believe that starts Friday. So, yes, there are players visiting. I wouldn't classify any of those three as necessarily starting caliber guys for Kentucky, but they've got 9 pieces on the roster right now. So you can theoretically get up to 6 more. I think, we had Brayton Hawthorne announce his return yesterday. We won't get into the weeds of that, but his brother Zion Hawthorne is coming with him. If you missed that, there's a rapid reaction on KSR's YouTube yesterday that we did. But yes, so there are recruiting efforts going on, but it doesn't seem like there's any major big fish still out there. Tunde Yesufu is in the portal, but it doesn't seem like Kentucky's really going to be all in on him unless they just decide to drop a bag, which would not bother me at all. Go for it, please. But then you've got, the NBA guys like Milan and Alan Graves and, potential guys that could pull out and still go. So we'll see where it goes. There could be another name or two that trickles in from the transfer portal that closed last night, but that's just kind of a quick refresher. We will do some more. We will do, like, at the end of the show, we'll kind of do our general thoughts just on the backcourt as a whole. But in the meantime, we're going to start diving into the film. But before we do that, actually, I'm going to kind of set the stage with Alex Wilkins, 6'5" freshman from Furman, All Southern Conference second team as a true freshman. They don't do like freshman of the year or anything like that in their conference, but I assume that he would have been the winner there. He was. Let me go ahead and pull up some counting stats here. From him from last season, 17.8 points, 4.7 assists in 29.8 minutes per game, shooting at 40. Let's just do his 2-pointers. 55.4% on his 2s, 32.8% on his 3s. Massive usage load for this kid who kind of came in right away. Should have been at a better school, at a higher level school. Just kind of got lost in the shuffle of playing for, I don't know if maybe you mentioned it on roll call yesterday, Brandon, like
I did.
in Puma or something like that. So kind of like Puma and Under Armour are still kind of trying to build themselves up in terms of the AAU scale compared to Adidas and Nike. But yes, so he had a great season. He kind of established himself with the UConn game in the NCAA tournament, where he had 21 points. Really, was the best player on the floor in the whole first half of that game. UConn kind of keyed in on him on the second half there and limited him. But really just a terrific, outstanding freshman season for a kid who played at Furman and is now at Kentucky, had a lot of really big suitors after him. I will say it is tough to find Furman game film on YouTube, Brandon. You have the lucky access of Synergy, so you're able to go in and watch full games and get all the cool numbers and stuff. Meanwhile, my poor little self has to, type in, get weird with the algorithm on YouTube. So I was able to find 3 games, though. One we can't use, which is the NCAA tournament game against UConn, because we do not want to get Steven in trouble, because the NCAA will come directly to his house and start banging on his door demanding we take that video down. And then we have the season opener against High Point in Rock Hill, where you and I are frequent regulars.
Big fan of Rock Hill.
Yeah, big fan of Rock Hill. They actually played their game in the pit of the Rock Hills Athletic Center. So season opener against High Point, another NCAA tournament team. They ended up losing that game by a lot. And then Alabama, they had an exhibition against Alabama that didn't count, where Alex Wilkins actually fouled out. But I was able to watch all those 3 games. So I have a decent baseline of, I think, what Alex Wilkins' game is. It was nice to be able to watch his first 2 games where he was like a brand new true freshman compared to the game against UConn, because it is a 180. He was still really good in those 2 games that I watched, but it's a completely different player after 35 games. When he's playing UConn, you can tell the confidence level is so much higher in that UConn game. But unfortunately, we won't be able to break down film from that one because we do not want to get in trouble with the NCAA. But that's enough rambling. So I'm going to go ahead and load up our first set of clips here. So we're going to split this into 2 different segments, essentially. We're going to start with his shooting. So a couple, because Brandon and I actually accidentally overlapped our plays that we were looking at here. So we both kind of picked summer plays. So I mixed in another one as well that I found in here. As you can see, Stephen Peak has just a gorgeous new lower third down there. Big fan of this down here, the new graphic. But how Alex Wilkins gets his buckets. So I'm just going to go ahead and let these I'll kind of talk over these plays as they're going through, and then we'll rewind, and I'll let Brandon Ramsey's coaching brain go at it, because this kid is a lot of fun to watch. He does some things that we've said it before that last season's Kentucky backcourt just couldn't really do, or at least do consistently. So I'm gonna go ahead and let him roll here. So first play, they're playing the Citadel here. You get him in a pick and roll action, gets himself into the lane. Oh no, I'm doing the passing first. I'm sorry, Steven. I think I messed this one up here. Let me. We'll just start right here. So here's one of the shooting plays here. This is in the exhibition against Alabama here. Bring the ball up against Aiden Holloway, mind you, is guarding him here. Big pick and roll operator for Alex Wilkins. Brandon, I don't know if you have those numbers handy from Synergy as pick and roll numbers, but if you
got them right here, Zach. 84th percentile in pick and roll ball handler usage. 75th percentile in points per possession as the pick and roll ball handler. So both very, very high. Not quite as high as Zoom Diallo, but certainly very high still. So top 75 percentile in both categories.
Yes, very good numbers there. And he does a lot of that, a lot of operating in the pick and roll. This one here, just an easy pick and roll operation with his big man here. He's able to kind of escape Aiden Holloway and Noah Williamson here. A pretty little step back, and he has a very pretty shot as well. Alex Wilkins does. And I think we're going to get another basket here. So this is something that I liked. I really hope this is one of the scoring plays here. Yeah, so this is one of the scoring plays, and he does this multiple times, where he did this in the High Point game, where he's really good at getting the ball out of the hoop even after made baskets, and kind of putting pressure on the defense immediately, and kind of generating fast breaks without necessarily trying to do that. I really like the deceleration that he pulls off right here. I'll actually just let the whole play go so you all can see what I'm talking about here. But is able to just kind of go into his defender, do a little deceleration, tough, kind of overhead shot there that I was a really big fan of. And I think we're going to get another step back 3 here. Yeah, similar to the one, or no, I'm just all over the place with my plays right now. But okay. And here's another, this is the third and final scoring clip, and then we'll kind of talk back around him as well.
Yep.
Where am I? I'm all over the place with some of my stuff right here.
We have Zach. He's in. I think he's on the Artemis 2. He's taking a trip around the moon.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm at right now with some of my scoring plays. So I know I'm supposed to have another shooting play here. We're learning all this on the fly. This is
passing.
Huh. Maybe I have multiple. Do I have repeat plays here? Or I do have repeat plays here. That's the issue. Okay. Well, I'm all over the place. But yeah, it's okay. So Brandon, let's just
nobody ever said podcasting is easy.
I am enjoying Zach, how you're doing this on the fly. It's tough. I'm enjoying it, and I'm still seeing clips of Alex Wilkins. And every time I see clips of Alex Wilkins, it makes me happy. So I'm good.
Well, thank you for making me feel like less of an idiot than I already do right now. But I will say that Brandon's actually, you know what? I think I can. Well, here, you know what, Brandon? I'm just going to let you run and talk while I try and figure myself out here on the fly. So. I'm going to show you this play here, and I want you to break this one down, and then I'm going to show you the next one where we get him going into the lane here. And then I just kind of want you to give us your initial little reactions of his two scoring abilities here, because this is going inside and outside.
Yeah, I think
whatever.
You know, this is what it looks like when a guy steps in, takes the reins as a freshman, and averages 17.8 points per game on an NCAA tournament team. One of the things that I like so much about Alex Wilkins is that it's very clear, and this is, you know, that's not necessarily anybody's fault. It happens from time to time, that he did not belong at Furman. And I am a lover of mid-major basketball. It's great that Coach Bob Ritchie found him. That is why he's one of the best mid-major coaches in the country. He gets talent like this quite frequently. But he was a high major player that showed up at Furman. Coach Ritchie realized that right away, handed him the keys to the car, and allowed him to essentially run Furman's offense by himself from day one. That's not something that happens every day at a place like Furman. This isn't a team that went 12-23 last season. This isn't it isn't a team that finished in the bottom half of their league. This is a team that won their conference tournament in the SoCon and went and gave UConn a real game in a 2-15 matchup. And they did it by just handing the keys to the car to a freshman. He steps in, literally one of the highest usage players in all of college basketball. In KenPom, he ranked 7th in the percentage of possessions that ended with him either shooting or passing for an assist. He was 18th in percentage of his team's shots that he took, 33%. Like, that is big time stuff for a freshman who then also contributes to winning 22 games, going and playing UConn in the NCAA tournament. So I think that's why he has so much star power to me when he moves on to Lexington, is because he had star power right away at a place that was an NCAA tournament team. And, you know, Furman finished 184th in KenPom. You know, that's nothing sexy, but it's a lot better than some mid-majors. And again, with what they did against UConn in the NCAA tournament, I think it proves, you know, just how good he and his teammates were last season. So I think when you're looking at Alex Wilkins in these two plays, it's once again, it's all about that playmaking. That's the word that you're going to hear a lot going into next year with this Kentucky backcourt, because yes, they are somewhat redundant, I suppose, in the fact that they are ball dominant playmakers. That's what the statistics would tell you. That's what the film would tell you. That is the truth. However, again, based on what we watched last season, I don't think anybody that is a Kentucky fan is going to be upset about the fact that we have two guys who are elite ball handlers and elite passers. And that's what you got with these two guys. Plus, their off-ball shooting numbers are pretty competitive, quite frankly. And I think that now, as opposed to being on teams where they were the engine of the entire offense and had to do everything themselves, now when they can play off of one another and get each other assists and get each other open shots, it's only going to accentuate some of those off-ball strengths. So I really have no worries about how these two guys are going to fit together. And as it pertains to Alex Wilkins, he's so long and fluid at 6'5". That gives him the ability to score it from that intermediate range with little floaters. He can pull up from beyond the arc as a three-point shooter. You know, I don't worry a ton about the percentages for guys that made 65 threes. Quite frankly, like, you know, 32.8% certainly isn't terrible. It's not great either. But if you make 65 threes, man, like, I'm going to let you shoot them. and I want you to shoot a lot of them. And I think that there's reason to believe that he can grow as a shooter with just the ball being in his hands a little bit less, with a little bit less being on his shoulders at Kentucky. And I think these clips with his shiftiness, with his pace of play, that length, I think there's a lot to get excited about. And I know there's been some people make the comparison on Twitter, but there is a little bit of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to the kind of the way he moves around the floor, the way he operates with the ball in his hands, the size and length that he has as a true point guard. Now, he'll probably be playing a little bit of the 2 with Zoom Diallo. As we've seen also a lot of times in Kentucky's offense, positions become a little meaningless once you get into the half court. So I'm really excited about the offensive upside of these two guys, and we'll get into it more later, and I'll get it back to Zach here. But I do want to say right off the bat, one of the reasons that I would be positive about this offseason as we sit here today is that Kentucky has added 2 starters from the transfer portal, Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins. And in my opinion, Kentucky's backcourt with those 2 guys is better than it was last season. So if you're going to give me 2 upgrades so far in the transfer portal, then yeah, do I wish there were more upgrades than just those 2 guys? Absolutely. But I'll take the 2 upgrades that I've gotten so far. And I'm really, really excited specifically about Alex Wilkins, but also kind of the combo of Wilkins and Diallo.
Brandon, I got your play. Do you want to talk about it real quick?
Yes, let's talk about it because there's Zoom action here. And obviously that's our namesake. It's what we want to get back to in 26, 27. So yes, let's let this one run and I'll talk just for another 60 seconds about this one.
Yeah, go for it. So yes, you get the quick, easy Zoom action down there, and then you get Alex Wilkins to come off that pick there, and just kind of an easy little step back, a little bit different than the one we showed against Alabama, but I like the step back ability. Is like a nice to see that, like the guy that can just kind of, as long as he's got a little bit of space, he's going to fire it off, and he's going to have a good percentage. You feel confident about him being able to get those off, squeeze those off, and actually make them. So yeah, just give me your takes on this play here.
Yeah, I love seeing this because I always like breaking down clips like this that are so translatable to something that you're going to see at Kentucky. Like there's a lot of times when you're breaking down high school footage or low mid-major footage, whatever it may be, where it's like, all right, yeah, that was a great play, but maybe we're not going to see a ton of that at Kentucky because it's a guy just being at a higher level than some of the other guys on the court. He maybe dribbles 17 times, gets into a shot. It's like, well, yeah, that's great. He's talented, but how does that transition to Kentucky? This transitions directly to Kentucky. We're going to see them run the Zoom action. They're going to hit. He's going to come back off the ball screen, and he can create space in these little tight windows. Again, because of his length, because of his size, because of how dynamic he is with the ball, he's able to get open looks like that in some tight windows off of the bounce. And I think that's something that is that individual shot creation piece that he has is unlike what anybody on Kentucky's team had last season. Now, does that immediately mean he's going to be better than Otega-Oweh? Not necessarily, but he certainly has better ball skill than Otega-Oweh. I think he projects as a better shooter than Otega-Oweh, and he's just so much more dynamic with the ball in his hands than Otega-Oweh. So, and I said the same thing when we broke down Zoom Diallo's film. So if you're going to give me 2 guys right off the bat that I quite frankly feel better than with the ball in their hands than last year's best player, it's not a bad start to the transfer portal. Certainly not a bad start to building your backcourt if you're Coach Pope in Kentucky.
Yeah, and okay, so I feel like I'm back. I'm not gonna lie, I was freaking out. I was freaking out there for about 5 minutes there. Just absolutely, like I feel like I'm sweating as well. So like, all right, I feel like I've recouped. Someone in the comments suggested just let the film play and we'll just talk over it. Whoever said that, thank you, because that kind of just calmed me down for a second. But yes, okay, so I think I'm back here. And let's talk. Let's kind of touch on some of the stuff you were talking about. So first and foremost, I kind of want to. So my immediate reaction when both these guys, Wilkins and Zoom, signed with Kentucky was that Zoom would be the point guard and Alex Wilkins would be the 2 guard. I guess is that kind of the sense you're getting as well? I know you just kind of mentioned, the actual positions might not matter, but like if there's someone that's going to be bringing the ball up more often than not, you would probably say Zoom over Alex Wilkins.
Yes, I would agree.
Gotcha. So, okay. So we're kind of on the same page there. With the shot making that we just showed, I think I even said on Roll Call yesterday, I was like, I didn't see too much of the Shai comparisons. And then I started watching more of the film, and then I saw the play, or one of the plays that I showed where he kind of slows down and gets himself in the lane there and is able to like go off his left foot and just throw up a real tough floater, like going into a guy putting his elbows. Like, now there is some Shai Gilgeous-Alexander stuff right there from him. So, like, he was pretty efficient at getting into the lane. He's 62.2% on layups this past season, which was a really high mark for guards. I forget exactly what Ortega's and Denzel's were when we did those, but they were like in the mid 50s, I think, something like that.
Ortega was low to mid 50s. I can't remember.
50s. I think Zoom was in like the mid upper 50s, and then yes, Wilkins at the 62.2% on layups, 45.7% on his mid range shots. His diet for that wasn't as big as Zoom's was, but still 45.7% is a very good number for mid range shots. That put him in a really high percentile as well. One thing I did notice when looking at the stats is he's actually more efficient on NBA threes than he is just like regular college threes. Like his percentages go up a little bit more, like slowly. Like it's only a couple points. Like I think he's like 33% on NBA threes and then like 31% on the college threes. So, but he took like a massive chunk of NBA threes. Like I think even one of them we showed there might have been an NBA three, but he's got some deep range. Really, like not a lot of his points weren't assisted on. So he was able to create his own shot. I will say that like when I was watching those first two games against Alabama and High Point, he was kind of, he felt sped up. Like he looked like a true freshman guard playing against, real quality competition to NCAA tournament teams. And he was just struggling to pass the ball, really, like wanted to make the home run passes a lot. And that was something that I didn't notice as much in the UConn game. So I'm sure throughout the course of the season, he kind of scaled back on that, but he was still a very high turnover guy. Is like more so than Zoom was. Do you have any big, because he was a high assist guy, I should note that, like massive, like I think, was he a 30% guy on his assist rate?
He was higher than Zoom. He was
34.8.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're 34.7. Are you on Synergy?
That's
Synergies.
KenPom. Yeah,
that's KenPom. Okay, yeah. CBB Analytics has it 34.8. But either way, that's 98th percentile that I'm looking at. So really good. But then his turnover percent was almost 20% on his turnover rate, which was CBB Analytics has that in the 16th percentile. You could kind of chalk some of that up to being the best player, the ball heavy guy on a team where he kind of had to do a lot. So the usage rate is really high too. His usage rate was in the 99th percentile. So do you have any big takes on his assisted turnover numbers, or is that just maybe more related to the team he was on and the load that he had to carry offensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that comes from the load he had to carry. A lot of that comes from the ball being in his hands constantly. A lot of that comes from him being asked and told to essentially orchestrate the offense, especially as a freshman. But 3.8 turnovers a game is a lot of turnovers. I don't care.
It is. He had an 11 turnover game.
Yeah. So yeah, it's something that he absolutely has to get better at. Like, he has to learn to value the ball more. But also the reason that it's not like this massive concern for me is that he is, even though I think he's going to be asked to do a lot at Kentucky as well, his role is going to be completely different. Like now all of a sudden he goes from being obviously the only guy kind of even sort of in his stratosphere at Furman to he has another guy that's just like him as a playmaker at Kentucky, like literally a playmaking clone essentially in Zoom Diallo. They go about it a little bit differently, but it's another 30 plus percent assist guy. It's another guy that had the ball in his hands a ton at Washington. So I think that it's very reasonable to assume, okay, yeah, those turnover numbers are going to come down quite a bit because he's probably going to have the ball in his hands, quite frankly, like half as much. So I think that, you can probably sit there and cut the turnovers in half. And I don't think it's sunshine pumping to say you can do that without just cutting all the other numbers in half, though, because I think that it does help to cut out some of the negatives, which turnovers would be that, but it does accentuate the positives. Like he's going to assist more because he has, some better shooters around him, or you can get Zoom Diallo catch and shoot threes. His scoring and his shooting ability will, probably only get better if not at least stay the same because he's getting better shots that Zoom Diallo can create for him and some other guys. Malachi Moreno can hit him on a back cut, different things like that. So I really do think that you can not worry a ton about the decision making, about the playmaking. But you're right, he got sped up some. He has to get a little bit better at just maybe not making the home run play sometimes.
It was the hit ahead passes, like like when he's in the backcourt trying to hit a guy underneath the other team's basket. Like it was the 50-foot passes that he was doing a lot, and like he probably had like a 30% success rate on the ones I watched. Like when it works, it looks cool, but a lot of the times you're just kind of throwing it into trees. And teams like Alabama and even High Point, who made the tournament, like they can exploit that.
Absolutely, yeah. So I like I said, it's not a huge worry of mine. It's something to keep an eye on, yes. But I think that with him and Zoom operating together, I think that you'll see both of them get the best out of each other.
And Steven, if you're able to, do you mind to throw up that shot chart graphic I sent you whenever you get a chance? Because I think it's kind of all over the place because he shoots a lot. But you can kind of tell, like you can see where he's better. Like strangely enough, he's much better from the right side of the floor. I mean, maybe not strangely enough because he's a right-handed player, but like I think he shot like 48% of his shots came from the right side.
Zach, I'm trying to load it up right now. So just give me like 45 seconds and I'll have that up.
You're good. We can sit here and riff. I just stumbled over my words for like 6 minutes earlier in the show, so I can talk for 45 seconds about stuff I actually know about. So I think it was 48% of his shots came on the right side of the floor, like 33% came on the left side. Was pretty efficient from the right side of the floor as well. I think that's just a matter of him wanting to get to his right hand. And even like when he would get to the left side of the floor, he would still kind of shoot with his right hand. So I'm interested to see if he actually like, as I watch more and more film, does he have like a left hand that he can kind of go to? But like the corner three, like the right side corner three, money. I think he shot like 50% on his right side corner threes. And I think that's a shot he'll be able to get more and more at Kentucky as opposed to Furman, where you can maybe be, I don't know what the right word is. Like obviously all the attention was on him at Furman. That's not going to be as much of the case at Kentucky. Like he can kind of sneak his way into the corners a little bit more, maybe get himself some easier looks from those corner threes because you got the extra 2 feet shorter, a foot and a half or whatever it is. So yes, there we go. So yes, a lot of the stuff on the right side of the floor is kind of where most of his shots come from. That right corner three is really good at. As you can see, the right wing, like above the break, right threes, that's where he shot a bunch and wasn't too efficient with them. He was more efficient actually from the top of the key and maybe a little bit to the left side of the wing there as well. And then just a ton of shots around the rim, especially kind of in that right side, right outside the right block there. But we'll see, like not that, like we said, the mid-range diet is not nearly as big as Zoom's is, but he's still effective when he gets there. Just like he's got a really pretty pull-up jumper because he can kind of stop on a dime pretty quick and just pull up and rise over guys 6'5" frame. So anything from that little shot chart you want to poke at, Brandon, while you're looking at it before we move on?
I do think it's good to see, and this is something that admittedly it's easier to score at the rim at Furman than it is at Kentucky. We all know that, but still skill level is skill level, talent's talent. Now Alex Wilkins has plenty of it. I think that after a year where it felt like, especially in our losses, which I get it's a little chicken or the egg there, but like there were so many times where I feel like I would put out the tweet, Kentucky was 7 of 22 on layups today, or Kentucky was 10 of 28 on layups today. And when you look at a shot chart like this, and you see Alex Wilkins' percentages, I'm looking at Synergy here. I know the numbers are always a little bit different, but he was 61.9% at the rim, 60.6% on layups this year, according to Synergy. So when you look at stats like that, that is encouraging. That's a lot better than we had from guys last season. And again, I'm just going to continue to reiterate, yes, am I happy with the way the overall roster looks on April 22nd? No, not necessarily, but we 100% upgraded the backcourt with Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about these two guys, and this shot chart is only part, as we've talked about, and we'll continue to talk about the reasons to be excited about Wilkins specifically.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and I'll bring back to the stage some of our plays that we were showing earlier. And I'll kind of let these walk, or we'll talk over these a little bit more, because there were like the two passing clips that Brandon and I chose, like were pretty much the same. So here's the first one here, and we'll we'll kind of do our more traditional Zoom action stuff here. So gets himself into just an easy pick and roll situation. He's really good at in Zoom. We pointed this out with him as well, of like being able to keep guys on his back, on his hip, and like not, using like his back as like a wall essentially to kind of hoard off to the defenders. Can probe really well, picks up his dribble here, but takes his time, doesn't speed himself up too much, at least in this instance here, and is able to throw a really tough, I think Colin Chandler was someone that could make that pass last year, but how many times did we see a pass really like that? Maybe Denzel Aberdeen could do it, but really like just nifty pass into the corner there. And I want to go ahead and try and scooch ahead here to his next pass if I can get that one. I think it's coming up here.
Yep.
This one here. So this is off the fast break. This isn't even a fast break. This is off a made basket by High Point. So like I said, like there was 2 different times in this game where I saw him do this, where he's able to immediately, like he's already created an advantage here. Essentially, like it's 4 on 3 essentially right now for Furman. So it's a really good job. He's quick enough. Just a nice little, like the fake pass to the right shooter here does just enough to freeze multiple guys on the defense. You freeze the guy in the middle here and the guy on the right, and you've got your shooter wide open in the left corner. Just really pretty stuff. That was an and one on that one too. So similar stuff that Brandon and I were looking at on those plays. And it's just things that we didn't really see last year from some of the guards, the ability to penetrate and kick out with that much fluidity, I should say, because, guys from Kentucky could do this, but it's like, how often did you see it that often? Did you see that consistently? Was it that fluid? Did it look clean? Did it look like a future NBA player was throwing the pass? Not really. With Alex Wilkins, it does. So what stands out about those two kind of just those nifty one-handed cross-court passes that stand out to you, Brandon?
What I love about it is the vision, especially on that first play, but really in both of them, because he's operating off of a live dribble. He's moving, especially the one in transition, the second clip. He's moving downhill at a pretty fast rate. Dude, he has his head up. He's reading the defense, like you said. He kind of got those guys frozen and hit it across court. That first clip that I liked, he freezes sort of the weak side defender there that's along the baseline, and essentially reading that guy. And as soon as he takes a step towards, I wish I had my laser pointer here, but the white kid right here on the block, like as soon as he steps towards that cutter, that's when Wilkins whips it to the corner. And if that guy would have committed to the corner, I think he would have hit the baseline cutter for a layup. And just the ability to read all of that so quickly and make such a well-timed, on-target pass that that's how you get a 34.7% assist rate. And now, after a season where playmaking was hard to come by for Kentucky, certainly individual playmaking, now to have 2 very high-level individual playmakers that not only can create their own shot, as we've seen in these clips, but then now in these last couple that we've broken down, the ability to make plays for others and assist at such a high level. I think that you're at least going to have the ability for offense to come easier for Kentucky. Yes. And that's something that I thought, systematically we got some of that in year one, like just the entity that was Zoom action and how well Kentucky ran it and how well Kentucky executed it as the season went along, made offense easy at times. Last year, it was just kind of a slog a lot of times offensively, where it's like, Kentucky might score pretty well in some games, but it's a lot of Denzel Aberdeen getting in there and making things happen himself, or it's a lot of times it was after a timeout, like Coach Pope drawing something up brilliant on a whiteboard, and all of a sudden running that and executing, and that's how that's the one time a game you can get a layup, is when you get something coming out of a timeout. And I think that Wilkins and Diallo both are going to be able to just create something out of nothing at a much easier rate and at a much higher level than we've seen the last 2 years from Kentucky's guards.
Yeah, not even close. Totally agree with all that there. Is there anything else you really want to touch on with his offense? I know. Is there anything else that really stands out? I really wish that we could show the UConn film, because we would just break down the entire first half of that game and just say, look at this kid like pick apart UConn's defense, because like, and even in the second half when they keyed in on them a little bit more, like it was a 5-point game with 5 minutes left, or 6-point game with 5 minutes left against UConn. Like, you know, if Braylon Mullins didn't shoot 0 for 1,000 from 3, that game is probably a little bit different, but that's how it happened. And Furman was, and I forgot that when I was watching it back, Taurus Reed had 30 points and like 28 rebounds, like legitimately 28 rebounds, like was looking like, I don't even know what like Shaq out there. It was unbelievable. I think he had more rebounds than Furman did as a team until like a few minutes left in the game. So, but Wilkins was just a menace. Like he was really fun to watch. So I wish we could play that film, but we can't. But anything else from his, because I do want to talk about his defense for a second. I don't know if you have any like super massive thoughts on that, but any other takes from his offense that really, or any like little quirks about his game that kind of stuck out to you at least?
So the one thing I do want to talk just a little bit about before you give us some defensive thoughts, of which I don't have many, because I think he's like Diallo. He's not going to be this massive negative defensively, but he's also not moving the needle, in my opinion, making you significantly better defensively. Yeah. And again, I quite honestly don't care. I want Kentucky to be as good offensively this year.
Can we score some points, please?
Yeah, let's get some buckets, baby. But Alex Wilkins made 65 threes, 32.8%. That is a okay, not super good percentage. 65 makes is, you know, decently high volume. That's a good amount.
Almost 2 a game.
But on catch and shoot threes, which again, I think this is very important now that he's playing alongside Zoom Diallo. He's going to have significantly more opportunities to play off of the ball with another elite playmaker in Zoom Diallo. Last season, per synergy, 40 of 108, 37% on catch and shoot threes. I think that's the number that people need to be looking at more so than the overall percentage, because he's going to be able to take a lot less off the dribble threes. Like, you still want him to take some of those because he's a great shot creator, and he's going to make some of those behind a ball screen or where he creates separation, kind of, you know, dicing somebody up. But I think that you can see the shot diet kind of move towards these catch and shoot numbers. 37% on unguarded catch and shoot threes, 44.7%. So when these guys are able to, like Zoom Diallo's number on unguarded is like 52%. So these two guys playing with each other, if they're able to get each other open catch and shoot threes, which with their playmaking ability, you would assume they'd be able to do a little bit of, the numbers are very encouraging of what they can shoot when they have open catch and shoot threes. And those are the shots that I think they can create for each other, that they didn't have a ton of opportunity to do so at their previous stop. So that's the last thing I want to mention. We talked a lot about the playmaking, the individual shot creation, all those good things, but especially with Wilkins playing probably more off the ball as the quote-unquote starting 2 guard next to Zoom Diallo as the starting point guard, I think that you can look at those catch and shoot numbers at 37% and be cautiously optimistic beyond what you would see in just the raw 32.8% number.
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the corner threes, like it's a very low sample size. Like CBB Analytics has it at 4.7% of his shots were from the corners. But he was 8 of 16 from the corners. You know, really efficient from there, so he can get his shot. He's proven that he can knock down threes, and I think that is a shot that's going to be open for him more as the season goes along at Kentucky, because he just won't be on the ball as much, and he won't have to. You know, he'll be able to separate himself a little bit and kind of have defenses not necessarily forget about him, but you know, it'll be a little bit easier for him to find pockets of space, especially in the corners. So we'll see how that translates, but. So his defense, boy, we have to preface by saying that the defensive games I'm talking about are the Alabama and high point games. Boy, he was lost, just absolutely lost on defense, especially in pick and rolls. Like, was literally, you know, he would have his head turned away from the basketball by the time these shots were going up. Like, just, and I think a lot of that is just a freshman guard having a massive role on offense, trying to learn defense on the fly early on against NCAA tournament teams. I think it wasn't nearly like it was obvious against those two teams in the very early season, in the exhibition, the season opener. It was obvious that his defense was bad. But in the UConn game, I didn't notice it. I didn't have any thoughts about his defense because he wasn't getting picked on. He wasn't getting lost. Like, he was just a regular average defender out there, which I think is all he needs to be at Kentucky. You know, I've noticed that it looks like he tries to play the gaps. Like, he wants to try and generate steals. He wants to create havoc plays. He wants to try and find easy ways to, poke balls loose. But in terms of actually on ball stuff, I'm not sure he's someone that is going to come in and try and lock down the other team's best guy. Like, as I will say, that's probably one concern I have with this backcourt compared to last season's backcourt is, Otega Owe and Denzel Aberdeen, I wouldn't call them like superior defenders, but they were plus defenders. You were Otega and Denzel were decent on-ball guys. You could put a lot of money down that Otega Owe is going to get a pick six every single game and make a huge highlight dunk that's going to change flip the momentum of the game. But didn't really see some of that stuff from Wilkins and Diallo as well. But like we said, like that's not really what we're worried about here. Like, especially if you have a guy like Malachi who hopefully can get a little bit springier. And, it does make me concerned, like how you fill out the rest of the roster, because you're probably going to need a guy that can come in and defend the other team's best player. And is that going to be Cam Williams? I don't know. Like, that's a lot to ask for someone like Braden Hawthorne too. So are they going to go after a guy who can kind of solely go out there to play defense? I'm not really sure. Or if that's even something that they're worried about. They're just like, man, the offense could just get stuck in mud so often last season that we just want guys that can come in and dribble, pass, shoot. And I think they've got that. So in terms of the defense from Wilkins, I think just expect him to be average. Just expect him to be a guy that goes out there and doesn't give up a bunch of points, but isn't locking down the other team. So do you have any big takes on Alex Wilkins' defense?
Yeah, I was just looking as you were discussing that there. I was pulling up some Evan Mia's numbers. He does kind of he separates the offensive performance from the defensive performance, and Alex Wilkins' defensive performance last season would have made him the worst defender on Kentucky's team.
Awesome.
Which isn't super encouraging, but some of that
there's a lot of give and take by doing everything on offense.
Yeah, you're doing everything on offense. Your teammates aren't very good defenders either. Furman was just a bad defensive team last year for the most part anyway. So also, quite frankly, like most freshmen stink defensively when they come into college basketball. That goes back.
That's why I wanted to preface that when I was saying these.
That goes back to me coaching Division III basketball. We just assumed that everybody was a terrible defender when we got them, and you kind of figure it out from there. And the one thing that I do like, and I said this about Zoom Diallo as well during our Zoom action breakdown of him, I like that he's a little bit bigger. Like if you're gonna be not super sound defensively, if you're gonna maybe get a little bit lost in ball screen situations, or if your footwork's a little bit off, I would at least rather you be 6'5" with a 6'8", 6'9", whatever wingspan, and maybe being able to poke the ball from behind, or bother with a contest at a little bit higher level than. I
think in the UConn game, he had one where he picked a pass just by being tall, like just jumping up and grabbing the ball because he's just so big that he could get there.
Yeah, I'll take some of that. So I think absolutely. Well, did Kentucky's backcourt improve defensively? No, probably not. But I think it got a decent amount better, at least in terms of their ceiling offensively. And like I said, to me, and I've said this in several different settings and forums over the course of the last couple of months, probably even going back to last season, you hire Mark Pope to be your basketball coach to be elite offensively. Kentucky was top 10 in KenPom offense in his first year. They were 40th in year two. That is unacceptable. I get it. Injuries played a part of that, but there were injuries in year one, and we still had a top 10 offense. So I want to see Kentucky turn out an elite offense in year three. If the defense is good enough, then Kentucky will be pretty darn good. If the defense isn't good enough, they won't be, and we can have different conversations. But I would rather go. I want Coach Pope to coach to his strengths, and I think his strength is being a very, very high-level offensive mind. And we'll figure it the heck out defensively. Having Malachi Moreno back there is a good starting point to have an anchor inside. You can figure it out, with some other guys and some scheme things defensively. But I quite frankly, for everybody that Kentucky has added and will continue to add this offseason, I'm going to spend about 95% of my time worrying about how good they are offensively, and about 5% of my time worrying about whether they can guard anybody or not.
Wasn't it Dan Hurley who said something recently about, like, I get the best offensive players and hope I can teach them defense along the way? Am I misquoting somebody? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I believe that was, and, he was talking a little about how, a lot of that comes from just like having some dog in you, quite frankly. Like he thinks if you're a tough guy, if you got some dog in you, you'll eventually figure out how to chase people around and be decent defensively. But, it's really hard to make guys more skilled. Like if you're 21 years old and you haven't figured out how to shoot yet, sometimes it's hard to figure out, teach you how to shoot. If you're 22 years old and you still can't dribble, you're probably not going to learn how to dribble this year. If you're 22 years old and you can't, read a ball screen coverage and figure out where to pass the ball, you're probably not going to figure that out during your senior year. But like a lot of defense is
effort,
physical and athletic tools, and it's want to, and it's having a little bit of IQ. And I do think that in some of those areas, the guards that Kentucky have signed at least give you a chance defensively to check some of those boxes. But a lot of times, especially for these guys, their best defense is scoring the heck out of the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you're scoring, you're allowing yourself to set up half court defense. You're not having to worry about transition as often. Should just theoretically, and I do think that Alex Wilkins and Zoom Diallo are smart, high IQ basketball players. They're a little bit longer, a little bit taller than Ortega and Denzel, so they should just from those alone should be able to luck their way into some random defensive stops, on a game by game basis. So I will say that I don't know much about him. I kind of remember, this is completely irrelevant or kind of related, but not really. St. John's transfer, Josan Sanan. You know who I'm talking about, Brandon?
Yep. Kentucky's been in contact.
He is now hearing from Kentucky, according to Sam Kaiser. So Alabama, Auburn, and Kentucky are the teams looking after him. I want to say he's like a 2 guard, right? Maybe even you could slide him down to the 3. I want to try and do
I would
this on the
say
fly.
but based on the way things are right now, I would say he played the 3. He is a little bigger, more of like an Ortega Owe type body, I would say.
Yeah. So maybe that's your guy that Pope wants to be kind of maybe a more of, I don't know his defensive attributes. Like if he's a kind of a lockdown guy, maybe that's kind of the route they're looking at there. Definitely a big 3-point shooter, like at Arizona State and at St. John's. For his career, he's shooting 35% on 4.1 threes per game. Like that'll be interesting. So we'll see if that ends up turning into something. I just wanted to throw that in there because we're doing backcourt talk.
The other recruiting news live here. Justin McBride is on campus now. He's just posted a picture at Kroger Field, actually. So
sure. If Stein has, if I'm Mark Pope, I send Justin McBride to Will Stein and say, do what your magic is and help me land this
I
kid,
have
please.
joked about it in the Zoom Action group chat, but yeah, I wouldn't mind if we maybe tapped into Will Stein's recruiting ability a little bit here. And I mean, Justin McBride is what, like 6'8", 240. Maybe he wants to play a little tight end or something this year.
Yeah. And honestly, like we're kind of joke about it, but like, I mean, Will Stein has some sort of magic, like recruiting basketball and football are completely different beasts. Like I think some fans kind of get that mixed up. Like the numbers of football recruiting is so much bigger that like, and they have bigger, I don't know. It's harder to generate tons and tons of these high dollar salaries for basketball players. Whereas for football players, you've got a bunch of guys making smaller amounts. And it's a little bit easier to recruit the football kids as opposed to the basketball kids because the basketball kids want a bunch of money. Unless you're like a left tackle or a quarterback or something, like you're not going to be making the high dollar numbers that some of these basketball players are. So that's nice to know. But McBride's on campus. You've got Josan Sanan. I remember watching him in high school a little bit because I feel like Calipari was kind of after him when he was at Kentucky. So that'll be a guy that'll be fun to go watch some film on him. But yeah, so let's kind of wind things down here. I think we're going to wrap things up today just by talking a little bit. We'll probably just kind of recap what we've talked about for the last 50 minutes. But Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins, just the backcourt as a whole. That's your starting backcourt for next season. You've got Malachi Moreno locked down there as a center, so you're still maybe looking for 2 starting spots depending on what everyone thinks of Cam Williams and stuff like that. So. But just your general thoughts, the excitement level, like, are you excited to watch the backcourt? And what will they do differently compared to last season's backcourt? We've already talked about it, but just kind of to recap and put a touching finishing cap on it.
Yeah, it's a lot of what I already said, so I won't go crazy here talking for another 5 minutes. But what I want to reiterate and what I want to really drive home is the overall point, at least in my opinion, of these two guys, of this Kentucky backcourt, is that if you're looking at it as Zoom Diallo is your starting point guard and Alex Wilkins is your starting 2 guard, I think those guys are better than Denzel Aberdeen and Colin Chandler last season. Like I would rather have these two as my starting 1 and 2 than what we had as our starting 1 and 2 last year. Now, last year's Kentucky team went to the round of 32, and we expect championships. There are certainly levels in between those two things. Am I going to sit here and say today that Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins is a championship level backcourt? No, I'm not going to say that. It doesn't mean that I don't believe that they could be. I'm just saying I'm not going to say that yet, especially without knowing what the other pieces are going to be.
You still got 2 starting spots to fill.
Yeah, we still have at least 2 starting spots to fill, and yeah, I'm very excited about these 2 guys. I think Kentucky got better in the backcourt. They got certainly more skilled in terms of handling the ball and playmaking. I think there's some legitimate, not just hopeful thinking upside to their shooting ability, and I think more than anything else, these are guys that they were 2 of the best playmakers in the transfer portal. So we can get frustrated. I've gotten frustrated publicly about not going after enough of the very top guys or not going after enough of the elite shooters. Well, we did at least literally get 2 of the best playmakers available. And that's not nothing, especially for a team last year that was not very good at making plays. We got 2 elite playmakers. I think that these are ceiling moving guys. I've talked about it on this show since the season ended. A lot of what I was going to judge 26-27 Kentucky on was who are our 3 best players. And I think that the ceiling of Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins is higher than anybody on last year's Kentucky team. So in my opinion, that is a step in the right direction. Again, does that mean they're going to be better than Otega Owe? Not necessarily, but I think that both of them have the capability of being better than that. So if you're telling me the first 2 guys we signed could be better than anybody we had last year, that at least gives me hope that we could move in the right direction this season. And that's kind of where I'll leave it with my thoughts on this backcourt.
Yeah, in a vacuum, if you are not looking at the rest of the roster, if you're just looking at 2 players and you see Zoom Diallo and Alex Wilkins as your starting backcourt, I immediately would think, okay, this team has a chance to be dangerous, like very good, win a lot of games, score a lot of points, and be a generally like fun team to watch. It's just we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a world where every single recruiting move is very much being paid attention to and overanalyzed and everything. And the reality is that Kentucky has 3 starting spots filled, and 2 of them are essentially the wing, the small forward, and the power forward. So, and that 4th spot is particularly important. It feels like for a Mark Pope offense, like you got to get a guy who can shoot the ball, because especially if you're going to have the other 3, because that's the thing is Malachi, Zoom, and Wilkins, not necessarily the elite shooting trio you're looking for in a team that wants to make a run. So how they fill out those other 2 spots will be very telling of, I think, what actually happens with the roster. But there's still 6 spots to be filled. There's a lot of time to be played or to figure this all out. Like if a month from now Kentucky finds a way to land Milan Momcilovic, boy, my tune is going to change about this team pretty drastically, because he's an immediate impact All-American caliber player that you can plug and play pretty much immediately, and I think would do really well along those other 2 guys, because they're just going to force feed him threes. I mean, Momcilovic will shoot 8 threes a game here, and he'll make 40% of them, and it's like holy cow! Like, okay, now the offense is really churning, but that's still a pipe dream at this point. So we'll see how it goes. But just looking at those 2, Wilkins and Diallo, I'm really excited, because I think they're just going to be more exciting. I think they'll be frustrating, but I think they'll be less frustrating than last year's backcourt. I just want to see guys that can dribble up and down the floor, like that you can rely on to beat presses, to go up and down the floor, to navigate through pick and rolls, to not dribble the ball off their feet out of bounds. Guys that are actually point guards, like you don't have to teach Alex Wilkins how to play point guard halfway through the season because Jalen Lowe is shoulders getting ripped out. Like it should, I say all this and who knows, like, well, actually I won't even speak the bad stuff into existence, but I'm very confident that this backcourt duo is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And it's just, however the rest of the roster gets filled out will be dependent on actually how high they raise Kentucky's ceiling, because they can raise it really high, just depending on if they get the right guys around them. So we'll see. Pope still has some work to do. We'll see what happens with all the guys that are visiting right now. Like, if Sonone is already hearing from 3 SEC teams, I imagine he'll try and start taking visits pretty quickly. I guess if St. John steals Donnie Freeman, maybe Kentucky takes
there we go. A
little
trade.
kid by, a little trade there. Probably still rather have Donnie Freeman, but so hopefully we can get to do another Zoom action soon with a new player, because boy, it'd be nice to have another commit hopping on board. I feel like one will probably be coming soon though, with all these visits coming up. Like if you got 3 guys visiting campus between now and Friday, like if one, you got to land at least one of those guys. I mean, goodness gracious.
Well, yeah, so, you just need players at this point. I mean, I get it. You don't want to get into this situation where you're just kind of like desperately taking anybody who's in front of you, but you do need to fill out a roster, and I think there needs to be a little bit of urgency, especially with a guy like McBride, that like he's a good player. I mean, the dude that was all SoCon player or all whatever we said their Sun Belt League was. He averaged 15 points
on threes.
Yeah, can shoot it from 3 a little bit. It has some physicality. So yeah, like is that who I wanted to be Kentucky's starting 4-man next season? No, it's not. But like that, he's a guy that keeps you from stinking. Like if he's your 4-man, yeah, he at least raises your floor. And we got a couple guys in the backcourt that raise your ceiling. It's not the worst thing in the world to have a guy or two that raise your floor.
And Malachi sets your floor pretty high as well in the front court as well.
It does.
So, any other takes you want to get off your chest, Brandon? I know it's been a fun couple days on Twitter for you, but anything in particular you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Nope. I'm just looking forward to continue adding some pieces, and yeah, we'll do this again soon. But I mean, in all seriousness, though, I mean, I am very frustrated with how things are going, but at the same time, it can change so quickly. Like the Josan
Sonone guy.
He's not a game changer, but like that name just came out of nowhere today. Like there are still names that are gonna pop up, or a international guy that could all of a sudden be linked to Kentucky or whatever. And like the way you feel today, and admittedly, yeah, like there's not a whole lot of reason for optimism that like if somebody does become available, like a Yusufu or whatever, like are we actually going to close on him? Well, like maybe not, because we have struggled to close on some guys. But like there are going to be opportunities for Kentucky to still build a very, very, very competitive roster. And it's just up to whether Coach Pope and company get it done or not. And I think that, with a lot of this, like the way I'm approaching this offseason is like everything's going to take care of itself. Either it'll get done the way that it needs to get done, and Kentucky fans will be happy in 26-27, or it's not going to get done the way the way it needs to get done. And quite frankly, this time next year, we're going to have a new coach, and we're going to be trying things another way.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, it feels, yeah. The next couple of weeks are going to be very important. That's putting it mildly. So for Zach, for Brandon, for Steven, working behind the camera there, appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thanks to everyone for sticking with us while I was just absolutely losing my mind for about 5 minutes early on there. I'm going to go and think about that probably for the next week, I'd say. It'll probably keep me up at night a little bit, but thanks everyone for hanging out, tuning in, joining us. Hopefully we get to do this soon. Whenever the next commit pops, we'll hop on, a day or two later after we've had a chance to watch some film and really break things down and hopefully provide you a more fluid episode of Zoom action. But we will see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in, and hey, go Cats.